It's Hawaii Matters, a Pacific Media Group community program. I'm your host, Kathy with a K. One of the prestigious sporting events open to the world is the Honolulu Marathon, held annually in December on Oahu. The 2026 JAL, Japan Airlines Honolulu Marathon, is scheduled for December 13th. Sign-ups are open now at honolulumarathon.org. Our guest is Dr. Jim Barahal, president of Honolulu Marathon Association. And if you could explain the distinction between the Honolulu Marathon and the Honolulu Marathon Association.
The Honolulu Marathon Association is the entity that conducts the Honolulu Marathon. They're pretty interchangeable. So we use Honolulu Marathon Association, HMA, or just Honolulu Marathon. And as you had said, in this case now it's called the JAL Honolulu Marathon for our title sponsor, Japan Airlines. This was the second year of the JAL title sponsorship, although they've been a sponsor for 40 years. So it's a very exciting new chapter for the Honolulu Marathon to be the JAL Honolulu Marathon and have that support from such a major international company like Japan Airlines.
Dr. Barahal, you stepped into the leadership role of Honolulu Marathon president in 1987. What do you remember about the Honolulu Marathon before becoming its president? Or actually, if you could even go back a little further, Honolulu Marathon began as the brainchild of Mayor Frank Fasi. If legend memory serves, he saw something, the Boston Marathon, and he was kind of like, wow, that's pretty cool. Running in the 1970s or even the 1960s, it was relatively new or novel. Is that right? Outside of the Olympics.
Well,
paint the picture, because now it's just like bucket list.
I don't know, about 15 years ago, we were clearing out the office, and I came upon a box. We really threw out a lot of stuff, but I came across a box that was labeled 1973, and I kind of said, well, we should take a look at that. And we saw the original kind of founding documents, kind of our founding papers, as it were. And Frank Fasi, who was the mayor for a long time and a very well-known politician of that day, quite an interesting guy, was a Boston guy where he grew up. And so he sent a letter to a running organization suggesting a marathon in Hawaii to be like the Boston Marathon, which at the time was really the Boston Marathon is still the longest running marathon. There was only a handful of marathons there. And there was a number of people that got involved. Someone from the marathon was a gentleman named Tommy Kono, who was on our board for years and was a former Mr. Olympia before Arnold Schwarzenegger. And Tommy was an amazing guy. Certainly other people involved. Jack Scaff, a doctor with the American Medical Joggers Association, who kind of pioneered cardiac rehab for running. But a number of people kind of jumped in at that point on Mayor Fasi's lead and started the Honolulu Marathon in 1973. There was 171 finishers. Ironically, I ran my first marathon in 1973 as well in Toledo, Ohio. It's called the Glass City Marathon. So in the 60s, running was really fringe, as you point out, other than the Olympic marathon or something like that. My dad ran, actually.
Wow, cool.
And he wasn't an odd guy in any way, but we kind of thought the running was a little odd. But when the 70s came along in the 1972 Olympics, a lot of people say that was the beginning of that first running boom when Frank Shorter won the Olympic marathon in Munich and kind of launched a running boom that really lasted through the 70s and I'd say into about the mid-80s. And certainly as my running evolved from someone who didn't run to running and running better, I was in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and then moved to Hawaii in 1979 and was part of that running scene, which led to me getting involved in the marathon. That was quite a running boom. And so as I got involved in the marathon starting in 1984, and 1987 I was elected president, that was a transition period for marathoning on a world stage as the amateur runners were starting to demand money and the corporate money started to come into marathon. So The turning point was in about 1985 with the Boston Marathon, and John Hancock Corporation, which was at that time a real institution in Boston, got involved in the Boston Marathon. I kind of anticipated and saw what was going on, had some connections to the Boston Marathon, and Frank Fasi was actually mayor again, I think, at that point, and felt that the Honolulu Marathon had stagnated and wanted us to move into the future, and working along with Mayor Fasi, believe it or not, and around that time, and some corporate hotel people that I knew from my other company, Doctors on Call, I'd started an urgent care medical business that was really growing along with that tourism wave of the 80s, which eventually became a huge tourism wave along with Japanese. Anyway, it was all kind of working together. And so when I took over the marathon in 1987, and with the help of a lot of people, we felt that it needed to move into the modern era, which involved, among other things, sponsors, and that coincided very well with my introduction to our Japan side and putting together partnerships that in 1987 we had about, I think, 5,000 or 6,000 finishers my first year in 1986, the year before I took over. And by 1992, I think we had grown to over 30,000. So that was the first boom of the Honolulu Marathon. And it coincided a bit with that 70s and 80s running boom.
The present day, there's social media, the internet really, shares the stories, YouTube, and with streaming, there's all kind of stories of sporting events. Then in the 1980s and into 1990s, how did the good word spread about the Honolulu Marathon? And what is the significance of it being held in usually the second Sunday of December annually on Oahu?
Well, I think that's become quite significant because the second Sunday in December is what in tourism they call a shoulder period. It's not a period where people travel. And so I think that was one of the original intents, was to get people to travel when they normally wouldn't. So it creates a huge economic impact. That continues to be the case. In fact, it's bigger than ever. We actually did an economic impact study last year. We hadn't done one since 2012. Markridge Research did this study for us, very respected organization. And as it turned out, the phrase they call economic output, the Honolulu Marathon last year, 2025, generated $532 million in economic output. Just to put that in some perspective, that's half a Super Bowl. Super Bowl generally about $1 billion for the host community, but they have to spend a lot of money to get that $1 billion. So the Honolulu Marathon right now, in terms of economic impact to a community, ranks top 4 in the country, along with the Super Bowl, wherever that's held. Some places it generates more than others. The New York City Marathon, and the Daytona 500 for economic impact. So it's a huge event. We're punching way above our weight in Hawaii because we're the 54th largest metropolitan area in the United States, and we have this really outsized event for economic impact, but also, as you had mentioned, just as a sporting event and kind of a worldwide recognition, it's very well known. And I think what started originally in the late 80s, you asked about how do we get the word out. Well, I think the Japanese team, we always had and promoted the event in Japan. We had an advertising agency, and in the original part of that, the gentleman that had founded the agency, Mr. Inagaki, put a lot of resources into the marathon that made no business sense. He certainly was not getting a return on investment, but he really wanted to bring Japan and Hawaii closer together and was committed to that and succeeded beyond anybody's wildest dreams. So for many years, we had a television show in Japan on Tokyo Broadcasting, which was essentially a national telecast that was done a few weeks later. And so we used traditional media, print, television. Didn't have a lot of money to do like magazine stuff. So that's how we grew. But as you point out, things changed quite a bit. And so, I mean, an interesting question for me, because of the way the marathon was, we always worked remotely. We have a central office, but we always worked remotely. I mean, I was building medical clinics and other things. All the people that were working on it had other jobs. So by definition, we worked remotely, which in those days meant a telephone, not a cell phone.
Landline.
Landline and a fax machine. Fax machine was really high tech when we started. We thought we were pretty cool. We were out there on the edge with our fax machines. So in a way, how things evolved with the world and with technology and the ways to get your word out worked really well for us when this second running boom hit. So there is a second running boom going on right now in the United States and in Western Europe. Hasn't quite reached Japan, but it will. This is a post-COVID running boom.
Oh, okay.
And it's driven by young people. In 2020, the marathon was not held due to COVID. In 2021, Mayor Blangiardi and I, and by the way, Rick Blangiardi is a huge sports guy and a big supporter of the marathon. But we talked, and he wanted to see if we could put that marathon on in 2021, even though people weren't really traveling.
Yeah.
And we decided to go ahead and do it. We thought it would be great for the community. Japan Airlines, to their eternal credit, sponsored it, even though no one from Japan came. And so that's an amazing thing that they did. And we had 8,000 people.
That's still a great turnout.
Well, yeah, it was interesting in a way because it was 8,000 people, almost all of them from Hawaii. So it became a local race for a year. And from a business point of view, if I can digress for a second, that was very interesting for us because we had to really go line item on this one to put this race on. What can we afford to do? What do we absolutely have to do? What can we maybe cut back a little? And we learned a lot from that one. That'll probably a lot of what we were doing, we didn't really need to do. When our backs were up against the wall, and we had to justify every expense, we said, maybe we don't need to do that. And so we found out a lot. But so from 2021 with 8,000 people all from Hawaii, last year, in terms of what I call our Honolulu Marathon weekend, our 3 events, we had over 44,000 entries. So that's pretty phenomenal growth by any metric. And I don't say that to brag. I'm just saying that's what's happened.
That's the actual numbers.
That's what happened. How did that happen? Well, a couple things. Again, there's a running boom going on. But how did the Honolulu Marathon grow so big out here in Hawaii? And again, one of the reasons is that we always worked remotely and we always embraced digital because we really couldn't afford it any other way. We were the first event to stop printing no written entry form. Used to, like for running events, you'd see the events at all the running stores and all that. We decided a long time ago that we weren't going to do that we felt that people had to enter online. And so we also know that we always remember with the Honolulu Marathon that we're promoting Hawaii. And Hawaii is very beautiful, very visual, lends itself extremely well to social media. And as a sidebar, because we were just talking about this the other day, one thing, when you're putting on an event in Hawaii, and you live here, and you've been here a long time, this is my 40th year as president, you have to be very careful to see Hawaii through other people's eyes, especially people that have not been here. So you can't say, well, look at this finisher shirt. It looks just like the one 7 years ago, or I'm kind of, I'm tired of the ocean and the flowers, so let's do something different. You have to realize that people are coming out here, many of them for the first time. So you always have to see it through those eyes and realize that Hawaii, from a social media point of view, Instagram, TikTok, what people are doing, it's incredible, like no other place. And this running boom is a running boom with young people, just like our 70s running boom. When I was running, we were young. And this running boom, our biggest age group now is 25 to 35.
Nice.
Yeah. So we've gone from 8,000 to 44,000. And this year, our entries are well underway. We have over 30,000 entries. We're tracking to 55,000 this year. So this will be the largest Honolulu Marathon in history. We expect the economic impact to approach $700 million. And it's been an amazing ride, and the best is still coming, it looks like.
This is Hawaii Matters. I am your host, Kathy with a K, and you just heard from Dr. Jim Barahal. He's the president of Honolulu Marathon. Sign-ups are open. You can go to honolulumarathon.org. December 13th, 2026, here on Oahu. You're talking about how it's going to be record numbers of folks coming in.
Yes.
Do you have any idea when people start arriving? So we know it's the participants. I'm getting chicken skin just thinking about all of it. But when does the roll-in begin and the rollout and exit of the participants, and also family and friends showing their support, because that's even that close second wave of folks. Yeah.
Well, we learned a lot from the economic impact study, and I don't have that in front of me, but it was 117,000 people came in. Mm-hmm. So we know the metric we have been using in the past in our 2012 economic impact study, they said it was one person coming in with each participant, but that's not the case at all. It's over 3 now for each participant. So they come with a lot of people. That's very important. And they stay, I think the average is it's a little different for the Japanese market and the non-Japanese, but it's about 6 or 7 nights. They stay for a long time. Mm-hmm. And that's what leads to this huge economic impact. So people start coming in, early in the week, and a surprisingly high percentage also go to the outer islands. Mm. We generated, I think, somewhere in the ballpark of, it was about $150 million in outer island economic activity as well. So, yeah, it's pretty amazing how many people come in for this and how long they stay and seem to enjoy coming here.
I've got some questions about the actual race course and the spin-offs, as it were, of the Honolulu Marathon. There was 2 separate seasons when I was in attendance in a volunteer capacity, and the volunteers, oh my goodness, they are just, I think they're more excited than the folks who are actually taking part in the race. The enthusiasm is infectious, just keeping everybody going. There's the Merrie Mile, the Hapalua, the King's Runner 10K, and the Honolulu Marathon. Did they all roll out at the same time, or what was the inspiration and the breakdown for each of these races?
Well, we had the marathon. We started something in the late 80s called the Mayor's Walk. Yeah. And this is a 10K walk. There was a walk that started right after the marathon. But we realized at some point, got smart, and realized that it's exactly 10K from our start line to Kapiolani Park. And so we decided that we would change that event and do a 10K that starts right with the marathon. So the people line up with the people doing the marathon. They give us a projected 10K time that would match the pace of a marathon. So it works pretty well. This is kind of a fun, at least I think it's funny, because I'm usually the one that names these events. And so, I name the Hapalua, I name the King's Runner 10K, I named the Kalakaua Merrie Mile. But I couldn't think of a name for this walk. I mean, walk run. It's not a walk anymore. It's the Start to Park 10K. And I spent weeks just talking to myself saying, what should we call this thing? It starts at the start and ends at the park. What should we call it? It starts at the start, ends at the park. And then after weeks of this, I said, starts at the start, ends at the park. I said, you idiot. That's the name. Start to Park. Brilliant. Took weeks for that one. But the naming of these things actually is quite important. So the Hapalua, which was started in, I think, 2012, the half marathon, I just Googled the Hawaiian name for one half, and it's Hapalua. And what was interesting about that one is everybody in Hawaii uses the phrase Hapa, but nobody uses Hapalua. Hapa is actually like not to sound like an English teacher, but it's like a conjunctive. It's like a short of Hapalua. Hapalua was actually the 50-cent piece for the Kingdom of Hawaii, too, so there's some actual history there. So I thought Hapalua was a great name for a half marathon. Not everybody agreed with that one. There was a lot of sense that and we decided to not do it with the marathon. We just started it as a standalone race, which is a big project, and we had no sponsor. But getting a lot of feedback that you're losing your Honolulu Marathon brand when you start something called the Hapalua. No one knows it's with the Honolulu Marathon. I said, that's true, but I think it's a great name, and I think it will stand on its own. And it has, continued to grow. Last year we had about 13,000 entries in that, and this year we're tracking to between 19 and 20,000. Our goal with the Hapalua is to be top 5 half marathons in the United States. The top 4 are all in New York City. So again, it's a little difficult, but so that's proven to be a fun event. The Kalakaua Merrie Mile was something that goes together on race weekend. So that's on the Saturday before the marathon. So the marathon weekend now, as far as the running events, are the Kalakaua Merrie Mile on Saturday and the Start to Park 10K with the marathon on Sunday. The Kalakaua Merrie Mile is designed, as is the Start to Park 10K, to get people who come with people for the marathon to be able to participate actively in the weekend and not just be a spectator. But also for local people, because we have over 800,000 local people that have finished the Honolulu Marathon. And many of those people, myself included, can't really do a marathon anymore. But we know they still feel very strongly about their experience. It's very meaningful to them and their family and friends. So it gives people a chance to get out on the road and do something to be actively part of it. And the mile was designed for that. You can do a mile. Mm-hmm. And that thing has snowballed. I mean, I can't believe that'll have about 4,000 to 5,000 people this year. And we do an Olympic level mile after everybody finishes their regular mile. And first person in the regular mile takes usually about 4 minutes, 15 seconds. It's fast. And then the last person's usually at about 45 minutes. And then we clear the road, and then we have a male and female top runners in the world. And actually the women get a head start and the men chase them. And our course record on that is 3 minutes, 53 seconds for the men. And for the women last year, 4 minutes, 20 seconds, Sinclair Johnson, the American record. So that's the fastest road mile ever run by an American last year. So this is a big time event. And it's really fun. So it all kind of works together so more people can participate and be part of it, because we know that's people, when they travel now and do things, they want to be active, and they want to be able to have an experience. And though it's great to be a spectator, it's even greater to actually be out there and be part of it. What's also interesting we've found is the marathon has gotten so much bigger locally, because people don't realize this, but I say it. We're the largest local event. If we had nobody that traveled anywhere for the Honolulu Marathon, we still had, between the Start to Park and the marathon, we have over 20,000 people out there from Hawaii. It's by far the largest local event. And we found that with so many people running now and all the great local running clubs that support us and participate, that brings a lot of spectators. It's kind of crazy now in Kapiolani Park in that finish area. We've had to put some barricades and stuff out there, because 2 years ago when we had this explosive growth, we couldn't believe how many people were lining that road to watch their friends and family finish. It reminded me of the old corridor when I ran the Boston Marathon years ago at Wellesley College, which is an all-women's college. And historically, when I ran it back in the 70s, they would just come out on the road and create a tunnel. So you would run a tunnel through Wellesley. It was almost single file.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. It's like a din, but it's different now. Now they have the barricades, but they're still out there. So we realized, man, we're getting like a Wellesley tunnel out here. There's so many people, but it's just grown in every way, and it's all designed. The marathon weekend is designed to have more people be able to participate, and the other events, the King's Runner 10K in March and the Hapalua in April, are just to kind of have more great world-class running events and designed more for local people, but they've been huge successes too.
You just heard Dr. Jim Barahal, president of Honolulu Marathon Association. This is Hawaii Matters. I'm your host, Kathy, with a K. Mentioning the volunteers with the Honolulu Marathon, there's a lot that goes into preparing it. The online application process, people have to process that, and also coordinating with the permits and hydration, tents being set up, the start and finish line. One thing that stands out to me at the start finish line is the carpeting. There was carpeting with the logo being nailed into the asphalt, safety. And I remember walking across it before any of the runners were there, and I was like, just marveling at the preparation of it. Safety first and foremost. Can you talk about? You mentioned the logo, about the original logo and what goes into the different iterations from season to season, and the design for this year's. Has that already been put to bed, this year's logo for 2026?
The finisher shirt?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty. We're actually working on that. It kind of gives people a sense of what we're doing, because right now it's early in June, and we're just finishing that design. Actually, right now we're putting together the sponsor logos and making sure the color schemes are right. So that shirt has been put to rest. We're working way out ahead of time. I should say operationally, I need to give a shout out to JJ Johnson, our race director, has been for many years. He's incredible. I think he's best in the country. He's the race director for all our events. He puts together an amazing team, and a shout out to all of you guys. The marathon is interesting in that way. It's many businesses combined in one. You talk about marketing and registration and sponsors and medical and I'd like to also shout out Dr. Alec Burke, our medical director, and Dory, who coordinates all the medical stuff. Just amazing people. So there's a lot going on. You have to divide and conquer on this one. We work all year round on it. The volunteer groups are amazing. We realized a number of years ago, actually, that there were some corporate volunteer groups out there, and they were good, but not as good as the folks. And we realized that the best people to have out there are these local community groups. And we do make a donation to them. It's a great fundraiser for them. And they come out there with families and kids, and they have a lot of energy and enthusiasm. It's like soccer clubs, volleyball teams, church groups, all kinds of military groups. So it's a great fundraiser, and they bring so much energy to the course, because unlike New York or a London marathon, you don't have Tokyo, you don't have millions of people lining the road. We're out there at 5 a.m. So those aid stations bring a lot of energy. Now, the carpet is interesting, because we used to have a Japan Airlines carpet, but that was a difficult project both to put down. It was white, it would get dirty, you had to clean it, you had to store it. And so we actually didn't do it. I think COVID we didn't do it for that year. We work with a great company called JPG that does a lot of, and also Onstage Hawaii. These companies do a lot of construction for us. We're building everything, and it's a lot going on. All those finished structures you see. But there's a new material now that's being used to lay down on highways. It would look as good as the carpet, and it's non-slip.
Oh, that's
which
critical.
is also really important. It's safe to use on the road. So we put that together with them, and we did the design, and they got the material. It looks like a carpet, but it's actually just like a giant logo now on the ground in front of the finish line, and it's great. And so we've done that for a couple years, and that's a one-time use. That's it. Once you peel it up, you're done with that. So there's all these little projects going on, and I think our biggest project, oddly almost, has become the malasadas.
Speak more on that. I like snacks. These are specific for the finishers.
The finishers of the marathon. We also do it for the Hapalua. And it's a kind of a funny story. A number of years ago, I said, we went digital early.
Yes.
So we were on Facebook early. And I was kind of joking at the time that probably your best social media coordinator then was probably about 14 years old, because we didn't really understand it at all as adults. And my son was about 11 or something. And so he was kind of manning it a little after the race. He was seeing all these complaints about the food at the finish. We're given a banana and a cookie or a bagel. And he was seeing all these complaints, and he was getting a little irritated because they're complaining about his dad. He didn't like that. And I said, you know what? Shout out to Sebastian. I said, they have a point here. I don't think the food's that good. So I went to Ron Chun, who coordinated things for so many years with Jeanette Chun, and Ron was in charge of all the park and everything. Sidebar, my wife had been the chair of the malasada tent at the Punahou Carnival.
Oh.
And I spent a little time down there, not enough. She thought I probably should have spent more, and she's right because she was there the whole weekend. But what I did notice when I was down there is that you can make a lot of malasadas on site if you have. These are all parents who are kind of and students. So I said, so I knew it entered the realm of the possible. So I went to Ron Chun and said, we should do malasadas at the finish line. I think that would be awesome. And he says, yeah, sure. I can call, different places and price them out. We'll buy them and deliver them down there. I said, no. We're going to, they got to be fresh. Malasadas that aren't fresh aren't that great. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's an acquired taste. But when they're fresh, they're really good. I said, no, we're going to cook them fresh down there. And so he put that project together with Centerplate, which was a concessionaire for Blaisdell and the stadium and stuff. It's their own recipe. Ernest does that. And so we started cooking the malasadas. First year, I think we did like 12,000. Last year, we made 40,000 malasadas. This year will be about 45,000 malasadas. That's a big project. During COVID, actually, what happened was Centerplate went out of business. Mm-hmm. And they auctioned all their kitchen equipment. Ernest was moving to Las Vegas, actually. He's actually the director of food and beverage for the Las Vegas Convention Center. But he said he'd come back and do it. Thank you. But so we have no kitchen equipment. Fryers and things. We had racks. So we had to buy all this kitchen equipment. So Honolulu Marathon, we have a lot of malasada making equipment in the storage facilities. And we joke to say, well, if this marathon thing doesn't work out, we'll just open up marathon malasadas.
That'll be
our new venture.
It could be a fundraising thing every quarter, every month. I mean, people are just like, yeah. So I just have a side note is the malasadas, Honolulu Marathon. Do people mention that that's what they look forward to because they just follow the scent of the malasadas being cooked up?
It turned out to be an oddly good marathon finisher food. And I think it goes beyond just a guilty pleasure. I mean, certainly there's an aspect of it. You've just done 26 miles. You can eat whatever you darn want, right? You don't need to justify it at that point. But oddly, because it's warm and kind of chewy and moist, and it just fills you up. It's really good. Actually, reminds me when I ran the Boston Marathon in the 70s, they used to give you beef stew.
Wow.
At the end of that, which is really, you can have some 26 miles. Here's some beef stew, okay. I don't know how those two would rank, but I talk about what are the Honolulu Marathon first principles. I kind of stole that from Elon Musk. Not that we're not playing on his level, but Elon Musk talks about first principles. So when he's building rockets or whatever he is, if someone says this can't be done, he breaks it down to first principles, which in his case for rockets are generally like, gravity, first and second, third laws of thermodynamics. These are physical, at what point does a metal melt? I mean, these are physical absolutes that cannot be broken, but there's surprisingly few of those. And I thought that's how sometimes he can break through. But other people give up, and he's saying if it's not a first principle, there's often a way to figure this out. So when, as this marathon that we've talked about with operationally and marketing and just so many different things going on, and we want to stay current and keep attracting people. So we've kind of broken it down to marathon first principles, and certainly not, Newton's law of gravity or whatever, but we look at what is like that important to us and to the people that come out here to do it, that we should never change that. Because that's important, because if you're doing a business, you want to always be looking at your business. What can we improve? Mm-hmm. What can we change? But you want to make sure you don't pull the thread on something that's going to unravel. So there's 4 first principles with the Honolulu Marathon, things that we won't change. One is the finisher shirt, because every other marathon gives a race shirt. You get that shirt. You pick up that shirt at the expo. And actually with our other events, Hapalua Kings Runner, Merrie Mile, we don't do a finisher shirt. You pick it up before the race. It's a race shirt. Yeah. The marathon, we feel that's the first principle, and JJ does an amazing job of figuring out how to distribute 30-some thousand shirts at the park. That's a big operation, but that's first principle. Fireworks, we think, is a first principle at the start. We think that's become synonymous with us, and it's in the dark, and it gives an amazing exhilaration and excitement to that. The malasadas, we, believe it or not, think is a first principle, which is why when we were confronted 4 years ago with, are we going to keep doing the malasadas, or are we going to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to buy kitchen equipment? We bought kitchen equipment. And 2 years ago, when we said we need more kitchen equipment, we bought more kitchen equipment. I'm not saying we're right. I'm just saying, we felt it was important enough to do that. And I think the other first principle is no time limit, that we want to keep that finish line open and special for people, no matter how long it takes. And I think that's important on every level for us to continue that. And not the least of which is a safety issue, believe it or not. We don't want people racing some arbitrary time out there if they're having a bad day and it's hot and they say, if I don't get in under this time, then they're going to pull me off the course and I'm going to be embarrassed. So it works on every level. And so we enjoy thinking that way. And we really, believe it or not, I suppose there can come a day where the malasada thing is just like so out of control. And gosh, if we didn't have Ernest and his sister Jermaine and all the people that do that for us, I don't know what we do, but for now we think it's important.
Before I let you go, can you talk about the Honolulu Marathon race course itself? Have there been any big changes from its initial setup in 1973, where it weaves around Honolulu, Waikiki, out to Hawaii Kai? The things I have jotted down: the general challenges, best views, and this is all your opinion. I would like to know your insights to it. Portions of the course where there's breeze relief, because there's nothing more suck wind than getting into a pocket where there's no air, it's just heat. So breeze relief, and talk about the last mile as you're coming in to wrap up the malasada, the tunnel of completion at the park and everything. But start off with the Honolulu Marathon, the general challenges of the course.
Well, the course has changed. The original course started at Aloha Tower and headed directly towards Waikiki. A lot of it was similar. I mean, let's face it, you're going 26 miles in urban and East Honolulu. There's certain things you're going to... You're definitely going up and down Diamond Head. You're going out Kalaniʻi Highway. There's certain things that are going to happen there. I mean, it tracks back a little to what I was saying before, that what can you change? And so we realized as the race started getting bigger that it's like with the Belmont Stakes is this week. So if you watch like the Kentucky Derby or like a horse race, they load the horses from the back. And when that last horse is in the chute, the gate flies open and they're off. And so what we saw with the marathon, when you're starting at Aloha Tower and people are coming up downtown from the Waikiki side, they're walking toward your starting line where people are lined up. So we learned like a horse race, load them from the back. And so we kept the starting line there, but from where we do now, but we run the other way. Don't run toward Waikiki at first. So that was the first change. The second big change was on Kealaolu, I think in 1991 or 2, when we went to 30,000 from 14,000. And Kealaolu there along Waialae Golf Course was two-way. And so we had to change that. We had to make that one-way. So we came out, we kind of went around Diamond Head a little and then cut up, like I think it's 18th Avenue and then up on Hunakai. So we had to route through Kahala that way. And then we shortened the area in Hawaii Kai instead of going all the way to, I think, Lunalila Home Road. Or So there's been some changes that have probably added a little, coming around Diamond Head a little more. You catch that hill coming around Diamond Head. That's a rough hill there as you kind of go by Triangle Park on the right. So the course is hilly. It can't be avoided. It's challenging. The wind is unpredictable. There's no question that the hardest part, from what I've seen out there, is coming through Kahala, because it can be warm down there. And as you make a right off Kealaolu and start coming up Kahala Avenue towards Diamond Head, and everybody who's run races here in Hawaii, other than the marathon, anybody who's run any race in Hawaii that goes up Diamond Head Road toward Triangle Park knows that that's an uphill. It doesn't look like it, but it is. And so psychologically, you're starting to wonder, why am I feeling so bad? Even though you're in the 22nd, 23rd mile, it's hot there, and you're heading toward the big hill, and then you got to go up Diamond Head. So that's to me, I think that's a tough part of the course, because people are feeling that they're getting closer, but you still got that subtle uphill going all the way through. And I think once you get to the top of Diamond Head, which is about 25 miles, then it's a pretty cool blast down Diamond Head that starts to bring you home. But it's a really long way from the fountains in Kapiolani Park to the finish line. Again, anyone who's run races there, you're hitting the fountains there. You're in Kapiolani Park. It's about 0.6 of a mile, and that can be a bit of a grind too. The best place to watch the race is probably, I think, the finish area. That's become such a happening. And, you know, we're pretty good about accommodating spectators. We welcome spectators. I think it's an amazing thing to watch people finish a marathon. I know a lot of people have done it, and you know, people of all different backgrounds and abilities do it. We've really learned, and I've learned over time, that everybody's story is unique. And to remind myself of that, you know, every year I make sure that for about 20 to 30 minutes, I stand at the finish line and watch people finish. You know, and these are people 6, 7, 8 hours, because I want to remind myself what this thing is all about. I'm out in the pace car with, you know, generally it's an East African runner who's going to run 2 hours and 11 minutes or something like that. So we're out there, and we're not just out there just to say and JJ's driving the truck. And we're not out there just to say this is cool, we get to see the winners. We're out there because that's our last course sweep. See, it looks like we're just having a jolly old time, and I hope we do. And we say this is a good ride today. But we're actually out there as the last line of defense. If something has gone wrong on that course, we do another course sweep ahead of us with motorcycles and stuff. But we're out there with some police, and if something's gone wrong, we can spot it. But, you know, that's one race. The professional race is interesting. It's fun. We think it's important. You have to remind yourself why people are out here, what they're experiencing, and to see them finish, and the joy and the exhilaration and the pain and everything in between is a good reminder that that's what this is all about. And our final finisher is something that, you know, we do celebrate. A lot of races have copied that now, actually. New York is really doing a big thing for their final finisher, and even though they have a time limit, they'll stay out there. So I just think there's an understanding here that this is meaningful to people. I think it's meaningful to the community, not just the economic impact. I mean, I'm out here talking about $500 million, but I think it runs a little deeper than that. I'm proud of that. I'm proud that this sporting event has become part of the kind of the fabric of Honolulu and Hawaii, and a lot of things have gone away. You know, we just lost those golf tournaments. The Sony, to me, the Hawaiian Open was a big part of the community. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just a PGA Tour event. There was there's generations that felt a part of that, and you had the great local golfers like Michelle Wee and Tad Fujikawa. I think that was a big loss. Great Aloha Run, it's not here anymore. Drive-in movie theaters aren't gone anymore. Lots of varsity theater. I could go on and on. But what I'm saying, and that's life. That happens everywhere. And I think less so in Hawaii in some ways. But I think for the Honolulu Marathon, and we know that people view us as part of the community. And they don't want to lose us, and we don't want to lose the community. So I think it's important that we remember why we're out here for, and that's a fun thing. So if you go down towards the finish and see these people come in, I think you're going to be in for a shock as to you're going to see everything, human emotion and human exhilaration and pain is pretty interesting. Should do it once.
Thank you, Dr. Jim Barahal, and the JAL Honolulu Marathon. You can learn more, sign up today at their official site, honolulumarathon.org. To share or replay this episode, please search Hawaii Matters where you listen to podcasts and this station's website. For Pacific Media Group, I'm Kathy with a K. Mahalo.